Welcome to another episode of Mindful Drawing, this weekly drawing exercise that allows us to enter a place of mindfulness and relaxation through creativity. I'm excited to have you join today and so that we can explore together some of the frequencies that resonate through our lives. I've been looking a lot into sound and developing, maybe a little bit better audio for things within these recordings. And with that, seeing a lot of the waves and frequencies that we are trying to manage, control, find the message within the noise that resonates all around us. For this, we'll use drawing as a way to listen in, to guide ourselves through our body, and then out into the space that we might inhabit, and see how those frequencies influence our motion, our attention, and bring to us some relaxation as we ease into them through repetition, through an act of drawing that guides the noise into rhythms and establishes a resonant hum as the baseline of our day. This is a way to gain some presence with that, attention to it, and detachment from all the things that might be reaching out to the sounds of your environment, to the sounds of others, and to the sounds of yourself, and let them become just one hum. I want to use some colored pencils today just to give a little bit more vibrance on the page, have some fun. I feel like the pen and the pencil are always a little bit monotone, and while they make nice looking drawings, sometimes you just want a little splash of something more vibrant. So feel free to use whatever you want, your favorite pen, pencil, and a piece of paper, and come along and let's draw together. And we could use this drawing as an opportunity just to bring some kind of stability, perhaps to those, and explore what sounds and frequencies might be underlying how we feel, whether that's rhythms of our heart rate, breathing, just kind of background tones and noise that might be permeating around us. And I think a way to begin exploring that is just letting the pencil move in a continuous, smooth way for the warm-up, just focusing on that, getting your hands and arms and everything into a bit of the motion before we start listening deeper. So I'm doing some circles. It could be squiggly patterns, up and downs, anything across the page that keeps it flowing continuously for a little bit, just to familiarize your fingertips with the texture of the paper. Find a comfortable position to sit and to hold on to whatever instrument you've decided to use today. I'm going to use this as an opportunity to test out a few different ones, maybe test a few different ways of holding on to the pen or pencil. Something more like a paintbrush here gives me a little less finite control, but lets me move with a little bit more flexibility. Something to try. If it feels good to hold it like a writing pencil, and just keep your thumb as the guide and pressure activator, more in the hand than in the wrists and the shoulder. That's okay too. Maybe do a few of your flows in different directions, some left to right, some right to left, some up to down, down to up, just to get all of those elements working together. And as this begins to fill up a page, we can transition here from the rapid technique warm-up into the same thing, but on a bit larger piece of paper or just a fresh piece of something. I'm going to stick with kind of the circles, but as I draw now, I'm familiar with my hand and the pencil to try to listen in a little bit deeper, see if I hear or feel any frequencies around me, a good one for all of us is starting with the breath. So just preparing with an in-breath and letting it out and seeing if a full revolution can happen with each in and with each out, which might, for me, mean going at different speeds on the in than the out, as my in breaths tend to be a little bit faster than my out breaths. And if there's gaps in between while you're listening or just calibrating, you can always pick any moment to catch up and connect on that in. Slow down a little bit on the out breath. I might use kind of each area, shape, or circle to bring my attention to different rhythms, whether they align with the shape that I can draw, which has a certain speed to it, or maybe letting it wiggle a bit, trying to bring my attention into the circulation of my blood. Having these headphones on helps a little because they cause a little pulse around the ears where there's pressure. And if you bring your mind and attention to the fingertips where there's a pressure with the pencil, you might begin to feel a little bit of that pulse. And just observe it a bit and let it guide. Bringing my eyes out of the situation, just letting them close. I'm trying to feel a little bit of that frequency that resonates through all parts of my daily being, the pulse that keeps our systems going. A very dynamic interaction as it speeds up when you give it more oxygen or to engage with something stressful or physical. And it can really slow down to conserve energy when things relax. We head towards a restful state. I'm now listening, talking, drawing, maintaining a connection to the page. There's a lot of little bits of noise that we might find interfere with our attention to something so subtle that goes on in our background. It might take a few rounds to find a way to bring some attention to that frequency. Perhaps just an imagined frequency that we know with our heartbeat and expansion and contraction of our blood vessels happens in a relatively regular, rhythmic pattern. And just bringing in attention to that, even if we don't feel the actual physical interaction. Finding your own frequency to establish on the page. For me, I'm keeping my eyes closed during this. I find that brings more of my attention to my fingertips, to the movement of my hand. Even to what I might hear in the background or close to me here in this space. And it just lets the pen or pencil go where it pleases. And as these first couple instances of the body, whether it's the breath the blood flow, the rhythm of the circulation. Take us a bit inward to ourselves and out of the space around us, quieting that internal attention a bit, letting it just become part of the frequencies, sounds and tones that resonate around us. We could then begin to allow that attention to find other paths in the space that we're inhabiting. Perhaps there's just a background hum to your ears. I have a bit of that, but rarely notice it in the city. I notice it a lot when I go outside the city, or over this past weekend where it was a little quieter around here, fewer cars traveling early in the morning, just get enough silence for a few moments to hear some of those other frequencies. Are they fast, slow? Are they perhaps constant? And how can your movements on the page bring some of those manifest in a more physical, visual way? For me, the sounds are a bit monotonous, kind of droning. There's a lot of computers around the space, just have a kind of hum to them, pulling electricity. If you have the pleasure of being near the outside, maybe not on a busy street, you might begin to feel a bit of vibration or resonance in some of your more sensitive tissue. Find that I can bring a lot of attention to my teeth, tongue, and the little hairs, the ears or the nose that are initiated by perhaps the vibration, in this case, of my voice, or of the in-breaths and the out-breaths that have a continuing effect. Those small sensors vibrate, produce maybe a subtle but perceptible kind of sound, or maybe that's a very fast sound, letting each time you might reposition the pencil or the pen have an opportunity to test a different frequency or rhythm that might be present for you right now. It's something to focus and narrow that attention in, so that as each one that we address, recognize, and give witness to, also allows it to be accepted as present and perhaps drift away out of our attention into the background, bringing forward more opportunities for stillness, silence, opportunities for more attention to the bass frequencies that might happen around us. The earth hums at a relatively consistent frequency range from its magnetic fields, the atmosphere, the wind rustling through the trees. Subtle vibrations from speakers or microphones as they just push a little air forward and back, compressed and release. And just you might open your eyes if they've been closed, or keep them closed if that's feeling nice. Finding it now an opportunity to see the different manifestations visually with a more relaxed internal ear. And I can let that visual influence some kind of manifestation of repetition, frequency, continuity and flow, maybe even a bit of chaos. Capture another aspect of my attention, my eyes. Just let that guide how the pencil and the hand and the arm might move in this thickening of the sound on the page, removing little jitters, misalignments, the dissonance, fading into a greater background, potential resonance. Perhaps the eye wants to track pattern and stay within existing frequencies. As I find a state of relaxation in this visual and auditory field, I find myself drawn back to my breath, that smoother, large-scale oscillation. It might even help to bring a count to the rhythms of the breath. In, 2, 3, 4. Out, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. Out, 2, 3, 4. By letting that count be a way of witnessing the natural cycles. We don't have to determine the speed of our breath, but just let it operate there in the background. Perhaps if you're feeling some tension, a nice way to release a little bit more of that is to create an imbalance between the in and the out, to develop a ratio there. And it's something we can explore over the next few minutes of just developing what's visually happening on the page. Can you find your relaxing rhythm of breathing and drawing together? For me, often a kind of 1 to 2 rhythm of in as the 1 and out as the 2 brings a lot of energy and relaxation into the flow. So I will attempt guiding that to give us a little bit more bodily presence here. In 2, 3, 4, 5. Out 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Just as an example, everyone's breath is a bit different. We'll leave the pacing up to you. Feeling any rhythm that might be present there for you on the page. So we might take these final few minutes to reintroduce our mind and our attention to the world around us. I like to do that through the drawing, just letting my eyes find maybe a bit more shape or focus and continue to engage with the technique. Here I find a lot of interesting spaces or opportunities in the overlaps, the moments of slight resonance, perhaps dissonance in each of these little collisions on my page. I'm just tracking that with a little bit more focus continuing the flowing oscillation of the rhythm, but in local contexts that might pull out or enhance little discoveries from the practice. Just give us a little bit more opportunity to let the eyes come back into their place in the forefront of attention, to engage with the visual field we've created, and maybe guide it for a little fun and creative practice. I give myself 4 or 5 or 6 loops through some of these spaces, just long enough to get to know them, bring that visual and physical attention to them, but then let it go before I'm absorbed into the repetition too much. Let that be a way for the mind to wake up, to come back to the space where we have to make our conscious thoughts, decisions, connections, to give us that space to be aware and grateful of having practices or ways to draw us out, to let us shift away from always being on, from the talking space of the mind and into a visual, an auditory, or sensory space where we can still practice our creative exercises or just find some relaxation to re-engage with new intention, new awareness as we move through our day. For myself, and maybe many of you, this time of year is always a transition with what might have been established during a summer workload into something new in the fall. As for me, I return to a regular teaching schedule, new students arrive to our courses, some of the projects from the summer continue on and overlap, and we just have to realign our day with a new schedule. And it's these frequencies of life that challenge us, to make us look internally and recalibrate so often on rhythmic cycles like the seasons or the semesters, that we can use some of these practices like the mindful drawing to give us a little space to absorb what is going on and to make calm entrances into these new territories. So if you're going back to work, reintegrating into the office environment, starting up at school, or just having a shift from the rhythms of summer to the rhythms of fall, I thank you for joining along and drawing with me and producing something creative together so we can all realign and stabilize with a bit of calm and collection. If you like what I do here, please share with your friends, like the video, subscribe below so you get notifications, and join us every Tuesday on the Twitch live stream at Rooks is Fun, or Wednesday when this goes live on YouTube. And you can come and join the Zoom as well if you find the Mindful Prats website and sign up for their calendar of mindfulness events throughout the week. Have a wonderful week and draw well.